If you're a regular listener of the show, you've probably heard me mention that I primarily play on Fox at 5 minutes of main time with 3 periods of 30-second Byoyomi. And to most people, that's a relatively fast time control. It's a brisk pace. You can't really focus too much on one thing for very long. And it's been my time control of choice now for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons is that the games take a lot less time, and you can kind of guarantee that it'll end within a certain period of time. I would say they probably take less than an hour most of the time. And they feel more lighthearted than slower games. I don't feel like I have a responsibility to come up with the highest of high quality moves when I'm playing a faster game. And another positive thing about playing on Fox is that it's really easy to find games. I play in the evening here on the West Coast, and finding an opponent is pretty much instant at that time of day. And although I love these shorter games, I am always trying to get myself to switch over to playing the longer format games, because there's a lot of other benefits that I could gain from playing longer format games. But what happens is that I'll try to play these longer games, but I'll want a good point to break off from my shorter games. For example, I might be thinking, hey, I'll switch over once I rank up to 1 Dan. And then I'll rank up to 1 Dan and I'll be like, well, I'm kind of on a roll here. I might as well keep going with this and see if I can reach 2 Dan. Maybe I'm going to double rank up here. And I keep playing, and maybe I'll drop back to 1Q, and I think, well, I can't just leave it here. I got to go back to where I was and then leave. And it just goes on and on and on, and it's hard to stop. There's this grind that happens that keeps you going and wanting to play more on that specific account. But I don't know. I'm going to try to pull myself away from it and switch over to the longer games. But today I am going to be talking about the faster games. Welcome to Starpoint, the show about Go for Go fans away from the board. It's a show for Go fans who want some Go content in the background while they work, drive, exercise. Maybe you're going to sleep. Try not to talk too loud. Or maybe you're doing Go problems and you're actually not away from the board. That's totally fine too. But it's been really delightful to hear from all of you telling me about when you listen to the show, that you look forward to listening to the show. It's really great. Really touches my heart. And I'm happy to provide this service for you. Now, I was watching Z-Chen streaming on Twitch, maybe even a couple of years ago. That's Michael Chen, the newest American pro. And he streams under Z-Chen Mike on Twitch. And he said something during his stream that was very counter to what I normally hear as advice. And he said that fast games are good for you. I felt like I'd been lied to, right? I go online and I'm a studious Go player trying to make the best of my time as a Go player, looking up what I should do to improve. And time again, I came across the advice that you should be playing long games. You should be playing long games. Fast games will build up your bad habits, and they're not good for you. You should just be playing long games, review your games, think about your moves, etc., etc. But whenever I find Go advice, I always find someone on the other side telling me the opposite. And Z-Chen Mike, he's a pro. How can you really argue with him? But I think there's a lot of nuance to this topic, which is why there's maybe some dissent. And it's a topic that I think about all the time because I'm playing a lot of fast games, and I am questioning if I'm doing the right thing by spending a lot of time playing these games. And so I've got some thoughts to share with you about fast games. One of them is that it's kind of a callback to last week's episode about the different dimensions of learning in Go. Because I described in that episode that when you're doing life and death problems, for example, It may seem like you're just training one thing, but there's multiple ways of doing life and death problems. And those different ways of doing life and death problems will train different parts of your Go skill and knowledge. You can train life and death with a focus on reading, doing harder problems, spending longer on a problem, and trying to calculate as many variations as you can. Or you can do life and death problems to learn shapes and Tsuji and try to have yourself exposed to more ideas in Go. Similarly, when you talk about fast and slow games, I think that fast and slow games are similar, are like the same kind of thing, where slow games will train one part of your Go skills and fast games will train another. For example, in slow games, reading is a lot more important. You can really turn on your reading engine and break through certain problems on the board that you couldn't do in a fast game. In a fast game, it's important to have a good knowledge of shape, playing solidly and properly, because if you make mistakes, you don't have time to be able to figure out how to solve those mistakes. And it's best to just play with very good principles and play safely, play solidly. In faster games, you don't have to worry as much about the score estimation, for example, as you would in a slower game. A slower game gives you more time to really count up the points and decide for yourself whether you need to make a certain play or not. In a fast game, you have to just kind of guess from what the board looks like without being able to count the actual points and make a decision. So fast games are really good for forcing people to make decisions under pressure. So there's a lot of these like dichotomies here, and it's hard to say that you should only play one type of game. So, okay, I'm kind of saying that fast games are good for something, slow games are good for other things. But maybe that's still a bit of an oversimplification. Because the question is not only like, what can these types of games help you with, but can playing a certain kind of game harm your Go in any way? A lot of people say that when you play a fast game, you may reinforce bad habits because you're not thinking about your moves. Well, is that true? It sounds scary to think that you're spending all this time playing Go, thinking that you're doing something to improve your rank, when in fact you're just slowing yourself down and setting up blockades for your own improvement. As someone who's been playing a lot of fast games, you can kind of guess maybe that I'm not really scared of that. Maybe I should be, but hear me out. I think that I learned some valuable lessons as soon as I started playing the faster games. And I want to share with you some of the lessons that I learned. One of them is that there is a right and wrong way to play fast games. If you go into a fast game and you click before you think, then you're doing it wrong, and all those things that people say about fast games being bad for you may end up being true. And so it's important to use your time, the little time that you have in a fast game, to actually think. Thinking, when you first start thinking, it hurts. You want to just play that move that you see because it shines so brightly on the board, and you just want to click it before you even consider anything else, because it hurts to think that you could be wrong about it. And so it takes practice to stop and really use your brain efficiently with the little time you have, right? Because, I mean, I still get into this problem. I just look at a move and I click it before I even have a chance to consider anything else. There's no reason for me to be playing this fast, even at this time control where I only have 5 minutes plus 3 periods of 30-second Byoyomi, but I just click like in a couple of seconds after the opponent makes their move because I like it. It looks pretty. And it looks like it might work. But I have to tell myself, whenever I'm playing a game like that and I find myself doing that, I whisper to myself, slow down, slow down. And maybe this is why fast games get such a bad rap sometimes, because sometimes people play these games and they don't really use the time that they have. It's like, oh, fast games means no thinking. Well, that's not really true. We're not playing bullet go, which actually is something I want to see. I don't know why they have bullet chess over there on, all those chess platforms, but we don't really have anyone playing bullet go. Maybe it's too silly. Maybe it's just like kind of too wild for the game. But yeah, if you do it wrong, fast games can definitely be harmful in the long run. If you're just playing every time someone attaches to you, hane. Every time someone attaches to you, you hane, and no matter what the situation is, you do not. I mean, this is a good principle, right, to follow. If someone attaches to your stone, you should hane. But that's not always the case, right? You can follow these principles to a certain extent, but you do have to think and look at the specific situation you're in. And training that is something that is very good for you if you're aware of that you need to train it and you do put it into practice. And so I think, you may think that 30 seconds you can't really do much, but you'd be surprised at how much you can actually think about during that 30-second Byoyomi period. So if you're going to go in and play some fast games, I highly suggest you use your time and discover how much your brain can really do in those 30 seconds. And that'll actually give you, I think, an appreciation for the time that you have in the longer games. Because I actually don't think that when you play a long game, a lot of the time, I think that people are not using their time efficiently. Think about this. When you're playing a long game and you're stuck on a move, really be honest with yourself. Like, how much of that time that you're spending on that game or on that move is calculating out variations and like actually considering the pros and cons of certain possibilities versus just pure indecisiveness of like, I don't know which one's better. Sometimes we stare at a position and we have two moves that we want to play and we're not really learning anything with the time that we're using, and we're just kind of sitting there because we don't know which one to choose. I think that happens a lot. And then in AI review, you realize this move that you spent so much time on wasn't even an important move. Like, the difference between your two moves was like half a point or something. And that you made a mistake 10 moves earlier that cost you the whole game and you didn't even realize it. So I think the benefit of the fast games is that it can tighten that window and force your brain to concentrate and really use the time efficiently. And it's because it's harder. I feel like it's harder to manage a longer period of time. But when you have only 30 seconds to think about a move, your brain will go right and left and up and down as fast as it can to really try to efficiently use that time to think about the most important things and then quickly make a decision. You have to make your decision, right? In the long game, you have the luxury of just sitting there and trying to come to terms with your decision, which is more of an emotional thing rather than an analytical thing. So, and because of the fast games have that time pressure, you have to learn to focus on the most important game-changing aspects of Go. Faster games are definitely not I was going to say they're definitely not a tit-for-tat style of game, but I have definitely played some fast games that feel very, very tit-for-tat. But I think that for the most part, you don't really play fast games trying to calculate the perfect end game. I mean, it can happen. I think you do run into those games every now and then, but you can't do it with the precision that you can do it with on a longer game where you have the actual time to count the points up. So because you can't really count the points to a point of certainty, and you don't have time to find the most optimal moves, like 100% optimal, you're forced to make some compromises and play solid shape when you can't fully read something out in time. And it teaches you that some moves are okay to play suboptimally. It doesn't matter that much. But it also teaches you that some moves are not. It trains your brain to constantly zoom out to see the bigger picture, because the way to lose a fast game is to just put on some horse blinders and tunnel vision. So it's important to play your fast games right, because without using all of these skills with your brain and actually thinking about the board and assessing different parts of the board, reading with the time that you have, fast games will not benefit you as much as they could, and they may even harm you. Another thing that I've learned about fast games is that they have a way of teaching you the flow or the movement of the stones. It's called hengma in Korean. It's one of the few Go terms that we've adopted that is a Korean Go term, because I'm not sure there's a Japanese term for it. But what I mean by this is, imagine you're trying to learn how to play golf and you're trying to learn how to swing a golf club, right? But all you do is you look at photos of a swing. Like, let's say you have like 100 photos and it's like a frame by frame swing of Tiger Woods. And you look at the photos, you study it, you put your club in the position that the photo's in, and you just try to replicate it that way. And you try to copy it. And it's like you have all this book knowledge and you kind of know what it's supposed to do at what point of the swing, but you've never actually seen a swing. So you don't have an intuitive understanding of what it should look like. And so I find that playing, this is what an emphasis on correspondence games can do to you, because when you play correspondence games, it's really hard to sense the movement of the stones and what the stones are doing in response to each other, and what your decisions, the decisions that you make, they take a long time to come back to you. And that's something that fast games can teach you. You look at a fast game and you start playing a fast game, you see how the stones are going left and right, up and down, when they're playing jumps, when they're playing hanes, when they're playing extensions, and you can see this rhythm. It's just the fact that it's like a faster pace allows you to learn how the stones move and how they behave. It's like kind of like watching water dripping down a cliff. You kind of just see, oh, the water tends to go in these little crevices over here and there. It's something that you would never be able to learn by looking at a photo of a waterfall. And another point I want to make is, have you ever watched a complete beginner at Go playing their first game, staring at a board, deep in thought? They're playing like their second game or first game, and they're just staring at their second move, and they're just like sitting there thinking for like a minute. And you're thinking like, there's absolutely nothing of value that you can contribute to this move right now, and you should just play a move and see what happens. And that sounds a bit harsh, but it's true. There's a lot of there are a lot of truths in Go that require actual experience in order for us to grasp them. It's like, imagine them like they're just staring at a dead group, right? It's a dead group. You know it's a dead group. It's like got a fake eye or a false eye. And they're just like looking at it like for like 5 minutes, reading out as many variations that they can to try to figure out like how it can live. And you're just like, this is a waste of time. You need to just play your moves and try to make it live and see that it doesn't work. And maybe after the game, I can show you what a false eye is, right? And this is an idea I've carried throughout my Go career, understanding that I don't have enough experience to figure out everything in my own head, and that I should try to expose myself to as much Go as I can so I can see how the stones move. It's like the bane of Go players. A lot of the time we like to think when it makes no difference at all, and we hate thinking when it's absolutely crucial to think. I think it's something that is very crucial to learn if you want to be a stronger Go player, to force yourself to think in those moments, to identify those moments where it is important to think, where it hurts to think, where you don't want to think, and really try to think in those moments. And stay away from those moments where you're overthinking and putting a lot of brain power into something that isn't very beneficial. I think that's a very difficult thing to do. It's hard to discern those things. I think that's what probably holds back a lot of players from ranking up. And that's also why Go is so beautiful, because it's such a mysterious game. It's hard to... I think that we enjoy the fact that Go is difficult. I don't think that we'd be playing this game if it wasn't so difficult. If it was an easy game, we'd be... if we liked easy games, we'd be playing Connect 4. Although I'm sure there's an optimal strategy to Connect 4. But with all that said, with all that support for the fast games, hopefully I've convinced some of you to maybe try out a fast game or two. And I take no responsibility for anyone who's losing rank because of any of the advice I share on this podcast. But with all that said, I am going to change it up and start playing some longer format games. I haven't used that muscle in a while. I think I've kind of tried to make up for it by playing or by doing reading problems, right? So, longer games equal more reading problems, right? Something that fast games can't really train. But I think I'm going to try to switch over and play on my OGS account a bit now that my correspondence games have finally dried up for the time being, at least until the next round of this tournament that I've signed up for, that I'm in. Or maybe I'll even try KGS out, depending on how difficult it is to find games there. But I'll keep you updated in my progress with these longer format games, and whether I can even switch over and stick to them. I'll let you know in a future episode. And now it's time for some Go news. Just as a side note for Go news, I do plan on covering major world events with a focus kind of more on the NA side of things, and maybe some EGF as well. If you want better coverage, there are other sources. And also my coverage will be a little bit delayed, unfortunately, because of the nature of recording the episodes. But if you're not very up to date in Go news, I can try to fill you in on some of the major stuff that's been happening. One thing that's not really Go news that's happened is if any of you are Go Pro Yanu fans, it's a popular Korean professional YouTuber. She debuted in this Netflix show called Devil's Plan. It's like a reality show. I haven't watched it yet, and it doesn't have anything to do with Go, but I think they cast her because it's like kind of like a scheming game where they probably want this Go player, like kind of like character to come out, but it's a reality competition show. So GoPro Yoni was appearing in that. To continue with the coverage of the Asian Games, the women's team tournament, China took the gold with a 2-1 victory versus Korea. It was I believe it's a team of 3 per country. And so China got gold, Korea was awarded silver, and then Japan was third for the bronze. And surprisingly, in the China versus Korea games, it was Chejong and Kim Eun-ji who lost, with Oh Yoo-jin taking Korea's only win. And then in the men's team tournament in the Asian Games, Korea takes the gold and with a 4-1 versus China. I believe the men's team is 5v5. And China took silver, Japan took bronze. Koje reportedly, in an emotional interview, was wiping away tears after the games. And, this is not a tournament where there's really any prize money and your ratings aren't really affected, but the stakes are very high. The Go players don't get really many opportunities to represent their country in such a major way like this. So it is an important game, or it's an important tournament for a lot of these players. And on top of that, Koreans can avoid military service if they take home a gold. So that was a big motivator for the Koreans. And then in the Transatlantic Pro Team Championship, I told you guys last time that I thought that NA was going to win, but I kind of mistakenly reported that that wording wasn't fully accurate because NA had already won at that point. It is a 3-round tournament, but NA taking 2 rounds means that NA had won at that point. But EU took the 3rd round, was not a clean sweep. EU took a 2-1 victory in the 3rd and final round of the Transatlantic Pro Team Championship, where the winning team, NA, would take $5,000. And it's funny how they call it the runner-up team. So it's a guaranteed $1,000 for the other team. And then per game, there was it's funny. It's funny how they pay all the losers a certain amount, but basically every winner gets a $250 prize and a loser gets a $100 prize. So you're guaranteed money to play in this tournament. And so, yeah, NA took the overall tournament, but EU did save some face with that last round with a 2-1 victory. And I believe now it's time for listener mail. All right, we got a lot of listener mail about our Byoyomi, Fisher, Canadian, and More episode, the one about time controls, number 7. And it's funny how we're such experts on the time control, and it's not actually anything to do with the actual game of Go. But it just shows you how much we have to focus on the outside elements of the game sometimes. Bobby Dibby writes, the EGF is also using Fisher for its main tournament. Personally, I think Fisher is the only time system that makes sense. It gives the most flexibility and doesn't require any specific time managing skill. It's the one that is most disconnected from the game. Thanks, Bobby Dibby, for writing in. Yeah, that is news to me that I didn't realize that the EGF is already implementing Fisher time. So maybe we've got some European players out there who can share their 2 cents on whether they like this mode of time control or not. But yeah, that's another supporter for Fisher time. Thank you for writing in. Big Blind Buys writes, I don't like absolute time in general. So I'm really grateful that Go defaults to various forms of incremental time settings. I think the main underlying reason why absolute time is used in chess but not Go is simply that in chess, a player has the ability to unilaterally end the game and declare victory. Just capture the opponent king. In Go, however, you always need some level of cooperation from your opponent to win the game. Either they surrender or they at least agree that the game is over, and that the game can progress to the counting phase. You can only truly unilaterally end the game by surrendering and losing. And that is a very good point, because and that's something that's very much easier to do in Go, to meaninglessly extend a game than in chess. Although I think there are some endgame situations in chess where you can make a lot of stupid little moves to prolong the game. That is very true about the nature of chess versus Go. Thank you for writing in. Next, we have Graybeard Go, who wrote a very long comment about various intricacies of the time systems. I'll read you a snippet of what they said. My favorite time control system is Fisher timing. Fisher combines the best of Yoyomi, no time crunch danger, and Canadian overtime, not spilling, but even better. With Fisher, you can decide how long you want a game to take, assume 300 plays for a long game, and divide the total time by 300, or total minutes divided by 5 equals increment in seconds. If you want 60 minutes for total for a game, then you'll want Fisher time with an increment of 12 seconds. Maybe 15 seconds for a buffer. You can choose an initial time bank with enough time to make the opening comfortable, maybe 5 minutes or for a 60-minute game, although that time bank may stretch the total game time to 70 minutes, more with a longer increment. Thanks for writing in. That is a good benefit. That's something that I always think about when I think about time controls. Can you design a time control system that can accurately predict a time range within which the game will end? And yes, that is true with Fisher timing. If you make every increment 12 seconds and you can kind of assume like 300 moves, then yeah, the game will end up lasting maybe a max of 60 minutes. But I mean, I think you can kind of engineer that with other time systems as well. And there's pros and cons, right? You can also do that with the delay time system with a 12-second delay, or you can even just make the absolute time 30 minutes each for the game. That'll make the game under 60 minutes for sure. So it's really a matter of all the tiny little details about these time controls. Anyway, thanks for writing in with your long and detailed comment. And then we have Ake607, who says the EGF is also using Fisher for its main tournament. Personally, I think Fisher is the only time system that makes sense. It gives the most flexibility and doesn't require any specific time managing skill. It's the one that is most disconnected from the game. Oh. I'm just realizing that this person commented the same thing under both under two platforms. So I mean, I've already commented on that, but thanks for making sure that message gets through. Gerontel writes, just wanted to let you know that I really enjoy your podcast a lot. I listen to it at work or when I go jogging. It is refreshing to hear somebody talk about Go without the need to have the board in front of you. And as you have already demonstrated, there is a lot to talk about. Awesome stuff. Well, I thank you, Gerontel, for the very kind comment. It's really nice to hear that you like to go jogging while listening to Go stuff. It's a nice compliment to hear that I've demonstrated that there's a lot to talk about. Although we'll see how long I can keep this up for. Anyway, thanks for writing in. Jonathan writes, I have played Fisher in tournaments and your concern is quite valid. One of the players made extra codes just to get more time and ended up running over the time allotted by approximately 45 minutes. Ooh, yeah, that's definitely an abuse of the time system that I would not want to face. And so, I mean, look, at the end of the day, we can try to control the players as much as we can with like the perfect time system, but we do have to have a level of etiquette when we play Go and have like foster a certain culture when we play Go, so that we don't abuse the rules or the time systems. As you know, whatever rules and time systems that we come up with, I'm sure there's going to be a way to abuse them. Thanks for writing in, Jonathan. And if you want to contribute to the listener mail portion of a future episode, I have a question for you for this week. How fast do you like your games? Do you have an opinion on whether fast games are good or bad for you? Let me know. DM me on Reddit or shoot me an email at starpointbaduk@gmail.com. That's starpointbaduk@gmail.com, or comment wherever you're listening. And thank you for listening. Thank you all for listening. Keep playing Go. See you next time.